Just at a Donald Trump rally in Chicago. The rally was cancelled. Come on in, Robert Jeffress, our evangelical friend. Can I call you that, Robert, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Look, a lot of people are very upset that we have this kind of political violence seeping into our election in 2016. How do you react to it?
Well, let's be clear about what was happening. These were not spontaneous, peaceful protests. This was an organized effort by liberal groups like MoveOn.org to limit and restrict Trump's First Amendment rights to the freedom of expression. I don't think, Stuart, Americans like that at all, and all it does is really show the hypocrisy of liberalism. Those people who cry tolerance the loudest are usually the most intolerant people when it comes to ideas they disagree with. And the reason this concerns me as a pastor is the same people who want to restrict political speech they find offensive also want to restrict religious speech they find offensive. And after all, Christianity is built on all kinds of politically incorrect beliefs, at least in today's culture.
Now, hold on a second, because we've got Dr. Ben Carson endorsing Donald Trump. Dr. Ben Carson is clearly an evangelical supporting Donald Trump. But, you know, Trump's response to the weekend violence was not to turn the other cheek, to be biblical about it. I mean, he's saying, Bernie, you send your guys to my rallies and I'll send my guys to your rallies. That is hardly turning the other cheek, is it?
Well, I think Mr. Trump subscribes to the Old Testament of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But look, again, I think what we have going on here is that we have people who are actually trying to prohibit the First Amendment freedom of expression. That ought to be a concern of all Americans that you would see this happening. And I think Mr. Trump, from what he's saying, is he's not advocating violence toward any peaceful protesters. He's talking about people who want to do harm. Let me give you an illustration of that. Here in Dallas last fall, we had about 20,000 people right down the street from here at a Trump rally. There were hundreds of protesters. They were outside the arena. Nobody bothered them at all. This is not what this is. This is an attempt to shut down free speech.
Now, what do you think will be the effect on evangelicals, generally speaking, of Ben Carson's endorsement of Donald Trump? Do you believe it's a game changer in some way?
I do believe it's a game changer. Look, Stuart, I've said for the last 6 months, there's a whole legion of closeted Trump supporters among evangelicals who are ready to come out. They just don't want to be made to feel like they're selling their soul to the devil to vote for Trump. I think the Ben Carson announcement and endorsement gives them permission to vote for Trump. And not only that, it also disrupts the narrative from the Cruz campaign that the really committed evangelicals are coalescing around Ted Cruz. I think the Ben Carson endorsement shows that's really not the case. And don't forget, the latest Fox poll shows in Florida that among evangelicals, Trump is at 39%, Cruz is at 22%.
Well, that's a Fox poll, and we broadcast that loudly. Robert Jeffress, thank you very much indeed, as always. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.